Hello, today I will give you a demonstration of the blocks that are used to interact with a database. For the demonstration I build a process of managing a database. In this case, is the management of a customer table, where I can add a client, add a record to a client, or delete the same record. So, if we want to add a new customer in our database, we just need to go to the link Add Client, and the flow will open a new form with fields to enter data to our customer. The customer can be Carlos. It was then inserted a new record to our customer table. If we want a chance to do an update, or an update to a client, we go to the record, and click on the registration update option, and change our registration. As we can see here, if we want to delete, we just need to click on delete. Okay, this was a simple exercise to show you how to manipulate the blocks database work within the iFlow. So, I will show how this process was modeled, and what blocks I used. For starters, I came to the catalog of variables and added the variables that would be used. In this case, it would be the data entry fields. So, I added the name, address, country, phone and email. And then, I added lists of names, mailing lists, country and email lists too. These lists will be used, so when I do a select to the database, this block will return me a list of names, or a list of addresses. And these addresses will be stored in these variables list. Then, I created a variable for each button. This means, each action that the user can do. You can close. You can add a new customer. You can delete a client. You can update a customer. And yet, I created two more variables that I will explain later in the table. Right at the beginning, we have two functional blocks. A block to do a select to the database, and another block to display the list of clients we have. In the select block, to the database, we have a simple select, which selects all the customers we have in the database, and associates each column to a variable of a list type. For example, the customer ID, we associate with the token, as the column to the variable list ID, and so on. For the name variable, associate with name list, address to address list, and so on. After the variables of list type have already been declared, we use them in our form. And our form, you will have a table. A table with lists, and these lists represent the columns returned by the select that we've made to the database. So, for the first column we put the ID underscore list. For the second column, which is the name, we to put name underscore list, and so on. For the email, to the phone, and addresses. Then, create two more columns in the tables, that are, the button, or link to update, and the delete button. And these links, what will they do? They will, when we click on the link, they will assign to the registration table. We will gather that registration table, and we'll send to a variable called var dep. and the record of the table that will pass, it will be the ID_list. So, when the user clicks into Update, a link to update, the var_dep will receive the value of the registration, in the ID_list column. This will serve to let us know which record that the user clicked. This means, what was the table row that the user clicked. Still, on this form, I have another button, the add_client, which serves to add a client, and a close button, which serves to close the process. All these buttons are tested in blocks condition. So the conditions, we will test what is the value of our buttons, and for the iFlow, the buttons are strings. These strings have values. When we click a button, we assign the string button a value. So, if I click a close button, I'm going to give it a value of close. That is, I will insert into the string close button the close text, as we have here. When the customer clicks the button, inserts this value. So, if we click on close, the variable of close button will have the close button, and then the process will end. This function of the string class compares the text we put on brackets, and returns a value of true or false, depending on the value of the variable. In add condition, we click on the button, and ask if the button has the value add. If the user clicked the add button, it will open a form, as you saw with the input fields for customer data. These fields of data entry also have its variables, as I said at the beginning, cataloged in our catalog of variables, in the functional start block. Then, we'll insert these variables in our database table of customers. So, to enter the values that the user set in the previous form, this means, we have to use the variables from the form, and insert these variables in our table. For this, we use the SQL insert function block. What does is to insert the data, a record in a particular table of a schema. And in all SQL blocks, we have to declare the schema, and this schema is by definition, the schema of the iFlow. This means, we can also use other schemas, and not only of the iFlow. We can have, for example, a production or other business schemas. But in this case we use the iFlow, because it is the default. Then, we insert into the customer examples table the columns, name, address, country, phone and email, that are the variables that will appear in the form fields to add the new customer. And for that, we must concatenate the variables to the string, or string values. In this case, it is this one. So, we concatenate the variable, name, address, country, phone and email. In delete condition, this one, and the update, these two conditions are different from the previous ones, because these are conditions to test the links that are on the table. Those two links, the delete, and update, are the table, and columns that we declared in the first form. And how do we manage to get the values that were clicked on that table, or on the row that was clicked on that table? Through var_dep, our system automatically creates a variable that has to be declared in the list of variables, which is the value of the link, namely the variable link, underscore, to the column variable. This means that we can know which is the ID that the user has clicked to delete. If we say that this ID is non-empty, therefore, we have an ID that has been clicked. He comes to this side. It is a positive statement, the condition, so it will make a delete to the database, and this delete will be done to ID delete, that he has clicked. So, we just need to delete the examples table, where the customer ID is the same ID that the user clicked, which is button underscore delete underscore ID underscore list, that is the column. To the update, the philosophy is the same. We click on Update button. This variable will have a value, so it will be different from empty. If the update link has value, we'll do a select, and it will serve for us to know which ones are the current values of the client. And for that, instead of us going to the list, and make a select list, to the list of the ID, is faster to do in the database, because we still have no functionality for working with arrays. Therefore, it is faster to do a select to the database through the ID. Therefore, we do the select to the database to know the values of the client that was clicked to update. These values will appear in this form. When the user changes one of the values, then we will an update with all the values of that form. As we did to the add, rather than a select, we do with an update. And so, in very brief explanation, I can explain how the manipulation database blocks work. Until now, we only had to define blocks. This means, to work with the values, we have blocks for creating tables, or to create schemas. This is a project that is being developed in InfoSystema. I think this was a lesson more complicated than the previous ones, so I advise you to read the guidebook, if you have questions. If the questions aren't in the guidebook, please contact our email, info@iflowbpm.com. In the next lecture, I will explain and demonstrate how the web services work within our platform, and the last class will be on security issues in iFlow. Thank you for attending our class.